Good evening to our guests from industry, Monash staff, students, MSDT team members and the general public. My name is Raj and I'd like to extend a warm welcome to everyone for joining us today at the Monash Decathlon team's Industry Night for 2022. I'd first like to make an acknowledgement for our country. I'd like to acknowledge the people on which the lands we are standing today, the Woiwurrung and Boonwurrung people, which as you can see are two of the peoples which make up the 5 peoples that are part of the Kulin Nation. From the larger map you can also see there that Australia is made up of a huge number of Aboriginal and Indigenous groups, and we'd like to extend our acknowledgement to their elders past, present and emerging. With that, I'd like to pass on to Brandon.
They formalize a lot of the roles and the committees on their team because we want this team to have a sustainable future, so that the students are putting together all these formal processes to make sure that the next students that come on board will have all the information and the structures in place to make sure we're successful. So in 2021, we again had 3 divisions. We competed in that virtually again because we all know what 2020 and 2021 were like. And we placed 3rd in a really challenging division to design an elementary school or primary school. I think I actually got that wrong. Which one placed? Attached housing. So the elementary school, thanks, I knew it was wrong as soon as I said it. The attached housing was the project that really inspired this year's team to go into the Build Challenge. And the attached housing was a domestic violence refuge that was co-designed with Cara House. And please don't hesitate to talk to some of our team members about that project. They'll give you a lot of great details about that. Then to the current team, so we are now about 65 strong, and we have members from all different faculties and different disciplines within engineering. We are currently undertaking a Build Challenge. We're competing in that for the first time, and you'll hear all about that later. But this just gives you a little bit of a breakdown of who the students are, what they're studying, and then another really key element is representation. So we are, I'll talk about this when I talk about some of our vision and values. We really strive to bridge the gender gap for, we're largely focused on a STEM project, and it's a really big issue, as we all know, to bridge, that gap is a very big issue, and we're really aiming and striving to bridge that with a fairly equal representation of women in our team. This is also represented in our leadership with completely 50-50 leadership for women and men. So just briefly, so you have some context here, the competition is put on by the U.S. Department of Energy. There are other solar decathlons around the world, and actually you'll hear from Jamali later about some of our aspirations to compete in those, and possibly one at home as well. There are 2 different streams for this, a design challenge and a build challenge. For the design challenge, the buildings are roughly broken into residential and commercial buildings, and our build challenges, as opposed to what it was in the past, we build those locally, and then you compete in this international competition. And if you're wondering why this was named after some old Olympic event, the Decathlon, there are 10 contests. You can read those there, but this is what the students are assessed on in their designs or build projects. So very briefly, I want to tell you a little bit about, you know what we do and who we are, but why we do it. And why we do these things is to really educate ourselves and the community, our broader community, in sustainable housing principles. And we want to inspire the building industry towards a greener future. These are underpinned by some of our values. So at the core of this is sustainability, as you might imagine. And this is really about understanding and pushing the building sector to provide strategies that mitigate environmental challenges for the future. We're also really dedicated to education. So we want to spread awareness about sustainability in the building sector in particular, and how it can be a mindset, something that we all can take part of. And that leads us to affordability as well. So we want to ensure that that the projects that we design and build are accessible to all. And so a lot of our impact is centered around these projects being affordable. We also we're also really dedicated to representation and inclusivity. So not just our team, the team members representing people from all different backgrounds, gender identities, sexual orientations, race and disabilities, ages, or qualification. We have a very diverse team here, but we also want to put that into our projects. So a lot of our projects are centered around ensuring that that access to sustainable housing is representative of our community and inclusive of all people. And then finally, collaboration. So we want to ensure that bringing all these people together is something that provides a net benefit to our community, and we do that through collaboration, team building, and this is probably something that you'll all see as a common thread throughout. We're a very cohesive team, and you'll probably see that as you start to talk to a lot of the members. We love to collaborate, not just within our team, within the different divisions, but also with our broader community. So that's a really key theme for us. I'll hand it back over to Raj. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Brandon. I think you put really well the progression of how our team has come to where it is today. We are one of the youngest teams at Monash, yet we've really grown to be a very effective team. And I think that really speaks to why a lot of us are really proud to be part of the team. But with that, what about our designs? I'm going to now pass over to the representatives of the Design Challenge, India, Jeremy, and North.
Evening, everybody. Oh, this isn't on. Hello? There we go. Evening. My name is India, and this is North and Jeremy, and we are part of the MSDT design team. We've been working on our design for approximately the past 6 months or so, and we've been competing in the multi-family division, which allows for both commercial and residential spaces in a single large building. So with that being said, welcome everyone to Djeemba. This is our reimagining of the aged care living facility or supportive living facility designed for elderly Australians. Conventional assisted living facilities, as we know them today, tend to be pretty depressing or cause a great sense of isolation in our residents. We see today that as many as 52% of elderly Australians living in assisted facilities have symptoms of depression. So our main goal is to create a place for elderly Australians to live and perhaps receive support, if required, in a building that focuses on community, not only building ties between residents, but also between residents and the greater society, so that we can prevent these issues of declining mental health in elderly Australians. So, we also thought it was very important to provide affordable and accessible housing to elderly Australians, because we have seen a recent increase in the percentage of elderly Australians that are living in assisted facilities. Australia is heavily reliant on aged care facilities, with approximately 1 in 5 people over the age of 80 living in a home, which is a lot higher than other developed countries. We also have seen a problem beyond living in assisted facilities. We've seen a problem with homelessness in the ageing population, with 1 in 6 homeless people being over the age of 55. This also disproportionately affects elderly women. Some reasons for elderly homelessness may be due to loss of partners, increased medical expenses associated with age, and also elder abuse at the hands of family members or guardians. For similar reasons as well, we see a lot of elderly people being low-income renters. So approximately 420,000 elderly low-income renters are expected to exist in 2026, and this is increasing rapidly as the baby boomer generation reaches approximately 80 years old. So with that happening, it's more critical now than ever that we are able to provide affordable and accessible housing to our elderly citizens. As for the location of our project, we decided to work in the Mornington Peninsula, which in Victoria is one of the most rapidly increasing aged care demographics. This has a really serene seaside location and kind of laid-back atmosphere that a lot of retirees and other elderly members kind of gravitate towards, as opposed to the fast-paced and perhaps overwhelming lifestyle of the city that they've kind of been exposed to for maybe a few too many years. Another great thing about the Mornington Peninsula, especially along the Nepean Highway, where we chose to kind of focus in on our location, is that while maintaining this kind of vacation atmosphere, there are a lot of necessities and even recreational facilities, for example, hospitals and grocery stores, and also golf courses and the like, that are within very much close proximity. We thought this was really important, as a lot of our residents, it was possible that they may be experiencing reduced or limited mobility. It was really of paramount importance that they would be able to reach any facility that they may need or want to use with relative ease. Our primary focus was, like I said, building a sense of community to prevent feelings of segregation or isolation within the elderly community. We don't want our elderly residents to feel like we are hiding them away for aging. So our goal is to create community within residents themselves, between each other, and then with the greater society, namely along the Mornington Peninsula. To achieve this first goal, we implemented a range of communal balconies that would allow access to the serene landscape of the peninsula, and we also had recreational facilities and a communal worship centre, which would allow residents to find kinship with one another through leisure activities or through worship or similar, that would really allow to foster ties with one another, create a lot of relationships, and make our residents feel like they're not quite alone. As for our second goal of integrating elderly residents with the greater society, we achieved this through creating a commercial ground floor and rooftop dining and bar experience. This was really aiming to invite the greater society through outdoors with enticing things such as we had a cafe, a library, outdoor garden feature, and really importantly a childcare centre, which would allow for intergenerational care, which Jeremy will touch on later. But through those kind of experiences, we would allow kind of relaxed, easy interactions with the greater society. It would make our residents feel like they're still very much part of a community and part of a greater whole, without becoming quite overwhelming, as we would see in perhaps the CBD that they're trying to avoid. As I said, without it becoming overwhelming, as well as our main narrative kind of being to integrate our residents, I think it was also really important that we focus on allowing for privacy and seclusion when necessary. We didn't want our residents to feel overly exposed, and we wanted them to have security, knowing that their private residences, their private quarters were indeed private. This also became of heightened importance during the recent COVID-19 pandemic and isolation requirements that are still in place today. It was really important that we were able to provide such isolation or seclusion if necessary or if desired. One of the main ways we achieved this was using a 2-lift system, one of which was accessible to the public and only had access to the ground floor and the top floor, and a secondary lift which was accessible by keycard, which only the residents and necessary staff members would possess, which had access to all floors. So residents could feel safe knowing that their floors would not be reached, could not just be reached by anybody. It was only required people were able to reach their private living facilities. We had a completely private section in the downstairs commercial area as well that included a reception, post office, and small medical office that our residents could use at their discretion. That was really important for us as well. So that narrative was kind of at the forefront of our design, but as part of the US energy competition, it was really important that we championed sustainability as well. So that was also very much critical to our design. And one of the first steps we took in creating a sustainable design was in our material selection. So when it came to the primary structure of the building, instead of looking at traditional materials such as steel and concrete for our walls and flooring, we looked instead to cross-laminated timber, which is strong enough and durable enough to sustain large multi-story buildings. We've seen it in examples that we studied in our research, such as Forte Living in the Docklands. That's a previous example that's had really great success with using CLT in its structural members. So we've taken a lot of inspiration from them. This CLT can be sustainably sourced, procured in Australia, so that's really exciting news for us. And the components of it as well, the hardwood exterior, the cellulose insulation and the timber used for the battens can also all be sourced in this country sustainably, and then all of course has high recyclability, especially the insulation and the hardwood. So that was really exciting for us to kind of find out about how strong and how effective it is for multiple story buildings. We were worried we'd have to use a large amount of steel and concrete. We do still have to use concrete in our foundations and on our ground floor, which was somewhat unfortunate for us due to the high embodied energy of concrete. But we found instead that we could lower our embodied energy through the use of fly ash. By incorporating fly ash into our concrete, we were able to significantly lower our embodied energy. Fly ash is a waste byproduct, so it's very low embodied emissions. And actually incorporating fly ash into the cement mix can increase both strength and durability of the product itself. So we were looking at lower maintenance cost and extended the life expectancy of the foundations of the building, which overall would prove an additional benefit for sustainability as it would need to be replaced less and less often. So that was some really exciting developments. Oh no. Okay, I'll see what happens. But I'm going to pass on to North, who's going to now discuss the energy performance of our building.
All right. Thank you, India. Which way am I going? That way. No, wrong way. All right, yeah, I'm North, and I'll be talking a little bit about the energy performance of the building. So to calculate the total energy consumption for the building, we used a software called Design Builder, and basically what the software does is it takes variables like the location of the building, the orientation, the weather data at the location, but as well as the characteristics of the building itself. So things like the building envelope and the materials of the walls and the windows, as well as window placement. So, yep. This is what the Design Builder calculated out as the energy consumption for the building for the year. It was roughly 198,000 kilowatt hours per year, which is about 49 kilowatt hours per square foot, per meter squared per year. And as you can see in the energy share, it is dominated by the interior equipment, where if the project was continuing, we would be investigating this share in ways that it can be reduced. Yep, okay. So for on-site generation, to compensate for the energy consumption, we covered the majority of the rooftop with solar photovoltaic panels, but we decided that to maximize on-site solar electricity generation, that it would be beneficial to not only increase the power generated on site, but also provide shading for the cars and the entrance of the building. So we get the extra panels on our site through the shading. And now I'll pass on to Jeremy.
All right, thank you so much, North. So apart from like the technicalities of the project, we also thought about how we're going to accommodate for the humanistic aspects of the project, and this would be done mostly through like the connection with nature and the wider community. So with the connection to nature, we utilize like biophilic design. So biophilic design is just basically incorporating like nature, like in terms of greenery, into the building. And the reason why we did so was there was two major benefits to it for our residents. So firstly, we have like it reduces stress and it improves the recovery time for our elderly residents. And from a study that we've seen, biophilic cities tend to create like higher levels of social connectivity with its residents. So that's kind of why we picked to do so. And the way how we did this was incorporating the natural elements onto the facade of our building. So as you can see, we incorporated planted boxes and spaces where we can accommodate for that natural greenery growth on the facade as a way to welcome the residents back to their homes. And instead of creating a conventional aged care facility, we decided to incorporate nature so that it feels a bit more homely for our elderly residents. And the second strategy that we took into like accommodating for tranquility is, it's not working. Sorry about that. So the second strategy that we took was intergenerational care. So for the intergenerational care, we decided that it would be a good idea to have a daycare center within our project, as India mentioned, as part of our community outreach kind of like aspect of the project. So the reason why we incorporated a daycare was that we found like from a study that it's actually really positive for the older generations and the newer generations to interact with each other, because firstly it reduces like elderly isolation, and also like it just generally gives like a better community engagement as like knowledges and like stories can be exchanged, so therefore creating a better understanding between the generations. And also it just basically reduces any negative stereotypes about the elderly. So this is kind of a way for us to bridge two generations together. So that's it, and I'll be passing back the mic to Raj. Thank you.
Thank you, India, North, and Jeremy. I'd just like to point out that the Design Challenge division was actually majoritarily made up of new recruits, and yet they still managed to make it to the semi-finals, which I think really speaks to their drive and ambition to really achieve excellence. Moving on now, I'll pass over to Kim and Elita, who will be introducing the Build Challenge.
Hi, I'm Kim. I'm the design lead for Build Challenge, one of the few architecture students, and I will give you a brief run through of our Build Challenge project. So our project has a focus of domestic violence transition home. Average stay of the project that we're designing is 6 months, and it's mainly for women and children. Our goals is to improve social housing standards from both a sustainable perspective and also a user experience focused perspective. And the reason why we wanted to do domestic violence was because in the year of 2020 in Victoria, there were over 92,000 cases of domestic violence, and 19 of which were murders. And domestic violence is actually a leading cause of the homelessness for women and children in Victoria as well. There were 51,000 cases of homeless women and children, and 26,000 of which asked for the help but were turned away.
it can be in a more controlled environment. From the energy perspective, we used an iterative process on Design Builder to try and make the house as efficient as possible. So our energy use of intensity is currently 32.8 and our Her score is 48, meaning that it's 52% more efficient than a typical house. But this is something which we are continuing to work on. So some of the principles that we've used to get our numbers down are maximizing north glazing on the windows, and using insulation materials with high insulation values. We're also utilizing a PV and battery system in the house to increase durability in the case of power outages. From the systems perspective, we're looking to do a lot of automation within the house, and we're developing a mobile app to do things like lighting, where you can change the temperature of all the lights. You can also automate the appliances to run when you're out of the house to eliminate noise. But you can also do standard things like energy monitoring, and you can get reminders about any maintenance that might need to be done, like checking your smoke alarm batteries are working. We also have emergency power mode, which is good if you want to do load shedding, so you can cut all non-critical appliances, and that'll reduce energy usage by 30%. Or it can power the house for up to 2 days in the case of power outage. Our PR, so for the Humming Home branding, we worked with Small & Co. to create a cohesive image that we're using across our social media and obviously in our presentations. We're looking to interact quite closely with the public, so we're doing public outreach, going to schools, educating kids on sustainable building practices and also encouraging them to pursue STEM. We're doing an AR walkthrough so people can view our designs internationally. And then our long-term impact and vision is for Humming Home to serve as a model for social housing to be purpose-built and to be sustainable but also affordable. And we also want to see prefabrication grow as a construction choice. We want to say a special thank you to all of the partners on the screen here who have supported us quite closely in the Humming Home project. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim and Alita. I think I speak for everyone from the build division when I say that we have been learning a lot in this whole process. There's been a lot of late nights in this whole process, and it's really kind of motivated us to really make sure that we get this going successfully. But with that, I'll pass over to Stephen and North, who will be introducing the prototyping division, our newest division.
Hey, I'm Stephen, one of the leads for the newly established prototyping division. The goal of this new division is to tackle the more hands-on aspects of MSDT, where we bring our designs into reality and physically build them. This will take the form of physical prototypes, scale models, and even potential products in the future. Together with our events committee, we plan on running events where we use these prototypes and models to showcase the principles and materials used in sustainable housing. Also, as part of prototyping, we offer our members opportunities in picking out new skills in modeling and construction techniques and tools. One of our current projects is making a model of a wall section that's based on our Build Challenge wall section. This will not only be used in our outreach programs, but will also help provide feedback for the build division Okay, good. We'll provide feedback to our build division on the viability of the wall section. We intend on running different tests on the actual wall section that we build and actually correlate those values that we get with what we got in our simulations to see how accurate our results are. Since these prototype projects are focused on specific parts of the building rather than the building as a whole, we are able to look into these things in much greater detail and pick up any issues that arise from physically building things. This will not only help us further refine our designs, but make them more commercially viable. I'll now hand to North to run through our future projects.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. We've been preemptively looking into some future projects that we might want to create, and these mainly involve looking at design for disassembly and also showcasing different materials and sensors. So this is one that we've had early idea development in, and it's a column connection that's designed for disassembly. This particular column connection is actually designed by last year's DCH team, and so they had to overcome things like not using glue or nails so that it could be taken apart and put back together. So what we want to do with this connection is create a small scale model that we can take to outreach programs to show how the team overcame those challenges and show physically how it can be taken apart and put back together, and even parts reused or recycled after the lifespan of the building has ended. So we also have a less developed idea that we are considering pursuing in the future, and it's showcasing different materials and sensors. So this will show, for example, the effect of insulation have on the building, or even the use of sensors as part of a smart building. So an idea that we've been thinking about for the future is using occupancy sensors to demonstrate at outreach events how these sensors can control the lighting and HVAC systems so that when they can be turned off when they're not needed. And this will of course save energy for the building. And that's all we have for prototyping. Thank you.
Thank you, North and Stephen. Before we move on, I'd just like to give a shout out to one of our team members, Stephen from the architecture subgroup. He was originally in the architecture subgroup, and during the start of the competition, he did a lot of heavy lifting for the group in terms of the 3D modelling, so which kind of earned him the nickname SketchUp. And now he's kind of just moved on and grown up as the lead of the prototyping division. So he's moved from on the computer to modelling things with his hands. We're very proud of him. With that, on the momentum of moving things in the future of MSDT, I'd like to hand over to Jamali, who's going to talk to our future aspirations.
Awesome. Well, this year has been absolutely amazing to be a part of. I think it's been one of the best years when it comes to growth, and it's been awesome seeing just how involved a lot of the new people have been. I think outside of me and Brandon, everyone who's spoken today are brand new this year, and it's been awesome to see how much enthusiasm has been having from the new people, and it's been great to hear. We've been hearing so many ideas constantly about how people want to take the group further and do more things than we've been able to do so far, and that's been awesome to see all their enthusiasm. One of the main things we want to start doing is working on getting some of our ideas from some of our designs implemented in the real world, even if we can't get all our full designs built. This involves, trying to come up with ideas in our designs that can be commercially viable. We've been talking to the Monash generator a little bit about creating a startup out of the team, so we can actually go help people out in the real world instead of having a lot of our ideas just purely be conceptual. This also, with our designs, we want to try and have more social impact. Obviously the build challenge we're hoping will be the first step in that plan. We're hoping that after we build it for the competition, we're really looking to see if we can implement it to actually house homeless children escaping domestic violence, because that's a cause that we would absolutely love to help out in. We also want to have a larger social impact with our design challenge. Last year, especially the attached housing division, once they completed their design, they tried doing a push to see if they can get some of those designs implemented by government and other organisations, and we'd really like to do that more with some of our future designs from the get-go and actually design them in partnership with organisations who need those buildings to be built. So we're really trying to up our social impact, and so far, our main thing, and pretty much the only thing we've been working on, is the solar decathlon, and it's been an absolutely incredible experience. And even though we want to do things beyond the solar decathlon, we still want to maintain our competitive edge in the solar decathlon. As Brandon said at the start, there is now a solar decathlon in every continent except Australia, and we hope to enter more of these solar decathlons instead of just focusing on the US one, and prove that we can compete with any design across the world. This also means we want to work with the Uni of Wollongong, which are one of the only other universities in Australia who have entered the Build Challenge before, entering in the Dubai one and the China one. And we want to work with them to actually try and establish a solar decathlon here in Australia. Talking to lots of our industry experts, there is so much room to growth in the Australian construction sector, and we would love to bring that competition to universities around here. It's an absolute life-changing experience. I think everyone who has graduated and moved on has said that this has been one of their highlights at university, and we want that to be an experience that all universities in Australia can also experience. So that's something we're really committed to do going forward. And none of this would be even remotely possible without the incredible support we've been able to receive from so many organisations who, we've been so humbled and blown away this year by the amount of support we were able to have. And it's been just an incredible privilege to learn from a lot of you. We've learned so much about things that we could have spent days Googling about and really not get anywhere. So we want to thank you all so much for your help. It was such a humbling experience, and we learnt so much from that. Thank you so much. I'll pass it back off to Raj.
Thank you for that, Jamali. So that brings us pretty much to the close of the first part of our evening, and we'll be moving on to the networking part. But before we move on, MSDT would like to make a massive thank you to our academic supervisors, Lizzie and Brandon. For those of us who have joined in person, there will be a networking session coming up right after this. There are refreshments just outside, and networking will be happening on the stairs, the wooden stairs over there. If you have any questions, please come speak to any of the ushers or any of the MSDT team members. We're happy to help out. For those who are online, feel free to ask questions. There are a couple of people that are still minding the Zoom. If not, that will be closed momentarily. If you haven't currently got a name tag on you, please find that near the back of the room over there. Julia's putting her hand up. And that pretty much concludes the first part of the evening, so please enjoy.